Well, good morning again. Tim Butler, St. Paul Fire Chief. On behalf of the 434 members of the St. Paul Fire Department and my staff, I want to welcome you here this morning to recognize some exceptional work done by the St. Paul Public Housing Agency. The St. Paul Public Housing Agency operates 16 high-rise residential apartment buildings, providing over 2,500 safe, affordable, and clean housing units to thousands of St. Paul residents. Over the last 20 years, the PHA Executive Director, John Gutzman, and his staff have worked to install automatic fire sprinkler systems in each of those 2,500 units. These automatic fire sprinkler systems have proven to be directly responsible for saving property and saving the lives of both the citizens and the firefighters that have to go fight those fires. The cost and effort of retrofitting buildings with these life and property saving systems is monumental, and it took a true commitment by the PHA leadership and staff to bring this project to fruition. In July of 2012, the last PHA high-rise was equipped with automatic fire sprinklers. That final inspection of the sprinkler system at 280 Revue was signed on a Friday. On Saturday, they had a fire in one of their residential units. Fire sprinkler put it out with $500 of property damage instead of 10 or maybe 15,000 and maybe an injury or a fatality. I'm joined today by the PHA Executive Director, John Gutzman, the PHA Board Chair, Mr. Tom Redding, PHA Maintenance Director, Hank Petro, and the council, the President Council's member, Connie Leiden. So Connie, welcome today. We're honored to have with us also today Mr. Scott Futrell, the President of Futrell Fire Consultant Design. That was the company that provided the fire sprinkler design, the fire sprinkler expertise, and the installation in the high-rise project. So I'm going to turn the mic over now to these distinguished guests and let them tell you about the project in their own words. And I'm going to ask them to help me provide some formal recognition to a number of PHA housing staff members who were instrumental in bringing this project to reality. So let me introduce to you today the Public Housing Agency's Board Chairman, Mr. Tom Redding. Tom?
Welcome, and thank you, Chief. As the Chief said, it's our mission to provide safe, affordable housing. Safe is a meaningful word for us, and we couldn't do it if it wasn't for our partnerships with our city's public safety entities. A lot of people know about our partnership with the police department through our ACOP program, community policing project that we've had for eons now. Not as many people know about our partnership with the St. Paul Fire Department. And our commitment to them over 20 years ago was that we would sprinkle all of our high-rise units. Because of funding levels, it took 20 years to do it, but we're more than pleased that now we're at the conclusion of that project and hopefully ready to embark upon new projects with the fire department. Thank you very much, and now I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you. I always say thank you, Mr. Chair, because I'm always addressing my board chairman, Tom Redding. And we've had a fun moment already. Many of you know Tom's a former assistant police chief. So Tom and Steve Zachard were having their nice police fire banter just a few minutes ago. I didn't know it was that real, but you guys were on it. I'm so pleased to be here. I wanted to talk about a couple of words. And those are mission and determination. And under the command of Chief Butler, the dedicated men and women of the St. Paul Fire Department, and I read your mission, you seize every opportunity to provide compassionate, prompt, state-of-the-art services to ensure the safety and well-being of our community. And as Chairman Redding pointed out, the mission of the PHA is to provide safe, affordable, quality housing. So that word safety is prominent in both of our missions. I love working with the city in many areas, including police, our 22-year community policing program, but I also especially love working with the fire department. And I think the act that you have is together. Everything we see with the fire department speaks about being together. and the installation of fire suppression sprinklers, I think, speaks loudly to the commitment of both of our organizations to the safety of, in our case, residents, employees, and I know in the firefighters' staff, safety of your firefighters. The word determination comes to mind as well, and it has taken 21 years to get this project completed. And I would say the willpower of Fire Marshal Zachard has been on display through all those 21 years. Fire Marshal Zachard sort of has this way of convincing the PHA to do things that might not even be required by law. Kind of the joke around the office is, if Zachard wants it, we got to get it done. Now, we held the line when he was aiming for Ferraris and Lamborghinis to replace these things, but basically, it's the determination of the fire marshal, the leadership of the fire chief that got us to this day, and yes, our staff who are going to be recognized today, their dedication to the safety of our residents. And we did find the money. It was not easy to come by. $9 million was spent over these 20 years to complete this job. So I'm very honored to be here and thank the fire department and all the fine, dedicated people. I remember hearing the chief say at one time, I asked, how many fires are there in a year? There's 450 or some, and you do the math. These folks are out there more than once a day putting their lives at risk, keeping this community safe. And my last point, getting back to Fire Marshal Zachard, what he wants, he seems to get. We were talking about this event at the PHA the other day, and as we were walking out of the room, I said, well, we just got money to build a sixplex at Roosevelt Homes. Fittingly, a unit that had been destroyed in a gas explosion in 1980. Had been sitting, the ground had been sitting vacant. We got some state money and PHA money. We're building a sixplex, and Mr. Zachard said, are you going to fire sprinkle it? Well, we don't normally sprinkle our family developments, but we are sprinkling that sixplex. So I think you'd be happy to know that.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming. This is a big moment for us. I was here obviously back in 1990 when we made the decision to go ahead with sprinkler systems in the high-rise. Steve, like John said, was very instrumental into convincing all of us how important it was, not only for the safety of our residents, but for the staff that's in the buildings, visitors that are in the buildings, and of course his folks when they come out and actually have to fight a fire. And we didn't think about a lot of that originally, but when you think about a 20-story building like Front Street high-rise, and their ladders will only extend up on a 4 or 5 floor or something like that, I mean, how do they fight a fire? They got to fight it from inside. So they put their folks at risk every time they come into those buildings. We've all seen the towering inferno type fires on TV, and we don't think about that being a reality, but those are the kind of things that we realized we needed to do. And under John Gutzman's leadership and the board, we decided that we would make this commitment back in 1990. Neil High Rise was the first one we started with. I don't think we realized really what that commitment was until we got started. The dollars are tight. As you know, funding is always tight in the public sector. And back in those days, you know, in some of the better years, we were getting $10 million a year for capital fund. Those are the dollars that we get to keep our buildings, you know, to do improvements and keep the buildings up. And some of these jobs, I won't get into all of them, but some of these jobs actually were $1 million jobs just to do one building. So you can see the percentage of the capital fund. Well, now our capital fund, the federal level, is down to $5 million. So I think we made the right decision doing them when we did them. They're done. It's an improvement that's made now. We'll have it forever. And obviously the safety, and Steve can talk about some of the things I'm sure that they've seen. But we've seen these pictures, and I think everyone should look at them because we've been in the units when there's fires. And we understand what a fire can do. And since the sprinklers have been installed in these buildings, we've had some fires. We've got over 2,500 units in these high rises. and none of them have got out of that actual apartment. They've been contained, and in most cases actually extinguished by the time fire folks got there. So I think all that is money well spent. I think we feel better about the resident safety and our staff safety and Steve's folks as they come in there. I think the other thing that you got to remember, when we started this project, there was a lot of unforeseen things happen. These buildings are getting old. They were built from 58 to 76 being the newest one. And so things have to be improved on. Them same dollars that we spend, those capital fund dollars, you know, have to be used and prioritized, and we get things that come up like all of a sudden we got to replace all the EFS on a building. So we have to sit there and analyze what gets pushed back, what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. And I think that the staff's commitment to these fire sprinklers was always the underlying driver, because I would sit in these meetings and everyone would always say, remember, we got to keep the fire sprinkler money in here and keep moving on. We didn't get them done as fast as we hoped. I don't think when we started in 1990 we figured we'd be finishing in 2012, but they're all done, and it was a huge commitment. And I want to thank the contract staff, because those guys really spend a lot of time. The resident services staff, you got to remember, we did this in occupied buildings. These buildings, never did we empty out anything to come in and do sprinklers, and we got a lot of folks in the buildings with special needs, you know, folks that are handicapped, things like that. So to get in their apartment when it's completely occupied, install sprinkler systems, and get them inspected and get out, it was a huge, huge undertaking. And it took a lot of staff time. Now, John talks about the $9 million, and that's real money, but there was a lot of staff time spent in this project too. Steve's folks coming out to help us, helping us with the prints, the contractors, what kind of things we should be looking at, what kind of things we shouldn't be looking at. One thing I can think of that we changed our mind on early on, we thought we were going to save some money with plastic pipe, and we decided that that wasn't the way to go. We went back to black iron. And when you're retrofitting a building that's there, it's one thing, the cost is huge compared to building a new building, because now we got to find a way to run these pipes. You got to get through concrete, you got x-ray floors where you got post-tension building. All of these kind of things really escalate the costs. And then, of course, we want it to look good, so when we're done, we got to hide all those pipes. It isn't like you're building the building around the pipes. So it was a huge undertaking, and it took a lot. And John mentioned just a little bit here ago about the new building, and I just talked to Tim, who's going to be building that new building out there at Roosevelt, and that cost is only about $2,000 per unit to install that sprinkler system. So if you think about that, $1,200 is all it's going to cost on a new building. One fire, you know, and if that gets extinguished, or if someone were to be saved, I mean, think about that investment. So I think it was money well spent, and I want to thank everyone who had a part of it. It was a huge group effort. And as far as our commitment to be partners with the fire department, there's a lot of other things that in the maintenance department we see on an ongoing basis. We deal with them on inspections of all of our units. They come out and inspect our units, tell us what we need to do. We work with them to get it done. They've actually sent staff out to train our people what to look for when they get into these units. They've worked with us on dryer venting issues. They worked with us on egress issues on some of our old buildings that have been grandfathered in, things like that. So all of this collaboration, working together, has been very good for all of us, and I think as a result, safer for our residents and providing them a better place to live. And I would like to introduce Connie. Connie is the president of Neil High Rise on our council, and that's the first building that we sprinkled, so I'd ask her to come up. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Connie Leiden, and I live at Neil High Rise. Thank you for inviting me here today. Well, it's taken a while, but here we are, 20 years later, having faced various hurdles along the way, now with all of our public high-rise buildings having sprinkler systems. And for that, we are thankful. I've never lived any place that had a water sprinkler system before, and I've always been terrified of fires. When I first went to view the apartment that was available at Neil and saw the sprinklers, along with the smoke detectors and the alarm system, I was very relieved. It would be one less thing to worry about, because I really needed less to worry about right then. After living in a beautiful home with my son, to getting the diagnosis of my son's cancer, to his not being able to work anymore and realizing that we were going to lose everything and that the outcome of it all would be horrible, I didn't need anything more to worry about. In talking with some new friends I made at Neil, the subject came around to the water sprinklers. Several spoke of how secure it made them feel just to know that they had that extra little layer of security because they were so afraid of fires, and any little bit would help. Of course, some also spoke of how the system spigots were really handy to hang things on, but you know how that goes. But no one ever wants to have a fire in their home, but you know that it could very well happen. No one wants to think about the water sprinklers either until we need them. But it helps to know that there's immediate help that will buy a little time to get you safely out, especially for wheelchair or walker-dependent residents who don't move as quickly as they used to. When a fire starts, fear takes over, and all of a sudden you can't think anymore. You're only wondering, are you going to be able to get out alive, and are you going to have a home to come back to? Afterwards, you wonder, if you've lost all your family possessions, and where will you live now? I've been told that the sprinkler response is quicker than the fire department can even get to us, resulting in less fire and water damage and reduce the loss of life and property. Something new that I recently learned after receiving some educational brochures from the fire department was that only the sprinkler closest to the fire activates, and I didn't realize that, and a lot of the other residents didn't. It means less damage to our home and our possessions, and the chances of the water system going off accidentally, they say, is very slight, and that the odds of you being killed by an asteroid is 32 times greater than the chance of the sprinkler system going off accidentally. And that's 1 in 16 million. So I think we're pretty good on that. Recently, the residents have been considering purchasing renter's insurance. And so now they'll be able to get a discount on their insurance because we have water sprinkler systems in our homes. So again, reducing the damage to property, possessions, and life just makes it a win-win situation for all of us. So on behalf of the residents, we'd like to thank PHA for their commitment to the safety of the residents and to the collaboration of the St. Paul Fire Department, Police Department, and all the people who are instrumental in providing and installing the sprinkler systems in our homes. Thank you.
I started a business in 1989 hoping to put better bid documents together for fire protection systems, working with architects and engineers to do that. And our relationship has been fantastic with the PHA as well as with the St. Paul Fire Department. I've worked with Fire Marshals of Card for a long time on the Governor's Council, on Chiefs Code Committee, and just in fire protection in general. This is what we wanted to do. We wanted to provide bid documents and support to owners, architects, and engineers so we'd get fire protection systems in for property protection, life safety, and firefighter safety. They're much safer when they're going into a building that's got sprinklers designed, installed, and maintained properly. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the working relationship we have with Dave Lang, Tim Braun, and Tim Gagnon. Angren, I'm sorry, Tim. That's been fantastic. I also want to mention my team members. Phil Ocker and Gary Kreska have worked on almost every one of these. I believe we've done 13 of the 16. Jerry Voss is a fire protection engineer that's worked on, I think, the last 2. Dr. Richard Pearson was an employee of mine, a team member of mine for many years. He worked on several, and Ken Strand also. Both fire protection engineers worked on them. The value of residential sprinklers, whether it's in a high-rise building or a single or a multifamily dwelling, it's just invaluable. We can't express it enough. But again, I'm grateful for the relationship we have with the St. Paul Fire Department and also with our client, the St. Paul Public Housing Administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Betty Lou Alfier. So if you want to make your way up and feel like high school graduation, get your picture.
Before we award this to Betty Lou, maybe I should read the citation for everyone. Back in October, Steve and I had the pleasure of attending one of the President Council's board meetings where we presented John with the Fire Chief's special commendation for his leadership and his dedication on this project, and that became the genesis of today, saying there's other people we need to thank too. So each one of these awards is individualized for Betty Lou's contribution and the other members. Let me read you Betty Lou's though, so you get a sense of what the letter of the commendation says. It's addressed to Betty Lou Alfier, the Community Service Award Dear Betty, the St. Paul Fire Department places its highest value on saving life and property, and we hold in the highest esteem the partners who share a commitment to public safety. You and the Public Housing Agency of St. Paul have shared an enduring commitment to the safety and welfare of your diverse residents. You played an integral role in the PHA's 20-year commitment to installing fire sprinklers in all 16 of your high-rise apartment buildings. This has been a top priority for the PHA and a priority for the staff as well. This life-saving project could not have been realized without the teamwork of the hard-working PHA staff that you're part of. Betty Lou, you were on the PHA team for the project from the very start. As maintenance senior manager of the high-rise buildings, you continue to work alongside the maintenance and resident services team throughout the implementation of the PHA's plan to sprinkler all the high-rise buildings. For more than 20 years, you and the rest of the PHA team worked tirelessly to make this significant commitment a reality. In July 2012, automatic fire sprinkler systems were installed in the last of the 16 PHA high-rise buildings in St. Paul. Your accomplishment is unprecedented in the state. It serves as a shining example for other high-rise property owners throughout the region. Therefore, in recognition of this remarkable accomplishment of a fire safety project that endured for more than 20 years, I'm proud to award you this Community Service Award for your exceptional teamwork and perseverance resulting in the betterment of fire safety in the community. Your work is a shining example of public fire and life safety and is keeping with the highest traditions of the St. Paul Fire Department. I commend you for your extraordinary work. Thank you, Betty Lou.
Debbie Haynes. Sharice Brown. Beth Forrest. Sam Hill, who I don't believe is here. Angela Brisson. Tim Braun. Now, at a real high school graduation, Tim Braun would be the guy who'd want to give a little speech. Right? Tim Angerin. John Wright. Hank Petro. Dave Lang. Vin Nguyen. Brenda Hibbard. Brenda, not here. Thank you. Tara Schwartz. Patty Minahan. Mike Winston. Melanie Hagman. Kim Wynn. Kathy Maloney. Juliana Quast. John Kramschuster. And Jen Jackson. And although not staff of PHA, Scott Futrell, president of the fire consulting and design firm that did work with us all these years, appreciate everything you did. I'll take these back, and I did read them. They are truly personalized. I thank the chief for taking the time to do that. Thank you for taking the time to recognize the PHA staff. Appreciate it.
I just want a couple just bullet points. Most fires happen in residential property. In St. Paul, 100% of our fire fatalities happen in residential property. 85% of fire deaths occur in the home, in residential property. Most fire ground injuries to firefighters and most fire ground fatalities to firefighters happen when battling residential property fires. Fire sprinklers can reduce property damage by 71%. They can reduce your chance of dying in a fire by over 80%. That's why this project is so important. Most high-rise buildings are sprinkled now. They're not when they were built in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. This truly is an unprecedented in the history of Minnesota project. And John, your leadership on this and the work that your staff has done truly is monumental. I believe that automatic fire sprinkler systems should be installed in every residential building, and I think it's negligent if building owners and property owners don't have them installed and don't work to do, as John has done, retrofit their older residential property. The last 12 fatalities that we've had in St. Paul were all occurred before the firefighters got there. We've saved a number of people in the last year with our aggressive attack procedures, our search and rescue, our fast response times. But in all the cases that we didn't get there in time, residential sprinklers could have helped keep those people alive. That's why this is important. The battle continues even today at the state capitol. They're trying to take local control away from public safety officials by banning sprinklers in single-family homes. And we're working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. Everyone should be following the PHA and St. Paul's example here and the work that John and his staff has done.